Hello and welcome to an episode of History Update with Andy Ackright. Today, our history update is about the Santa Fe Trail Spring House in Mission, Kansas. Now, this really got me started. I was in Mission Magazine, an article in Mission Magazine, and then I've done a couple talks related to Santa Fe Trail Spring House, but I have just learned so much more, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Martha Wright, and I'd like to thank from the University of Kansas, Dr. Amy Vanderriet, our University of Kansas School of Architecture and Design, for helping out the research and everything like that, and as well the Santa Fe Trail organization. So here it is. This is the top of the spring house as we can see it from ground level. And you can see the driveway there. It appears to be under new ownership and they are redecorating. As we go back here, you'll see the drop of this little stream down there, way down there at the bottom. And Mrs. Martha Wright indicated that in the 50s, 60s, she remembers it being the same way. Okay, now we've got some history to go back through. And we start this house, we're going to start in 1948. Okay, so 1948, this home, or land rather, was purchased by Bill and Charlotte Skaer, S-K-A-E-R, and they built this home in 1954. Now in 1951, Kansas City had a huge flood, a monumental flood, and people still talk about it to this day. And Mrs. Martha Wright, or Martha Skaer's dad, would come down to the spring to get water and bring it up to the house every day. And this was because Johnson County didn't have any water because of the flood. It had taken out those systems. Now, the family did sell the house in 1960 and downsized. It was 5 beds, 5 baths. There was a living room, a dining room, a huge family room, a big eat-in kitchen, and as you can see, well, it had a 3-car garage at the time, just 2 right now. Along with Martha, there was Diane and William, and the spring house was just looked a little different. So the spring house was already here, but the entrance to the spring house was on the north. So it was on the north side. And where it's gonna be, we're looking at about right here. Okay, so this section right here. And you can see the rocks here coming out. But then it's been turned. So this is the north facing this way, east facing this way. And when we go in, you can tell very much that that's where the entrance would have been. Now, Mr. Skaer also would have done the electrical and most likely the cinder blocks, everything. Added lights into it. It used to be a moat as well. So you can see it down here trickling out. There we go, the wall. But the water only goes underneath the step and over to here. But it used to be a moat, it used to be a circular structure, and they would even keep beer and watermelons down here because it was cold. It's cold water. Still is cold water to this day, and water's coming up. Now, is it the Santa Fe Trail Spring House? Most likely not. Most likely not on the Santa Fe Trail. It was too close to Westport to be a overnight campground, and too far away from the trail to be a watering hole. But the spring was definitely here at that time, and we have a record that Mission was founded on 2 springs, and this would be one of them, and the other is just west of Knoll on Johnson Drive at the right behind the BP. You'll see a circle of bricks with some park benches around it. That's where the other one was. And at the time that Miss Martha Wright was here, they did not have windows, anything like that. So here would be the door. But we were wondering about the stones. How old is this? How old are these stones? Right? You can see how they were laid. They were not perfectly laid. Here's a good example here. Okay, well, atlas searches come up with the best guess being 1874. Around 1874 would be when this was built. Now, the family that owned this at the time had an orchard and had a stone quarry, so they would have the means to build this, and if you're having an orchard, you need water, so they would have a reason to make it. So that's 1874. The earlier records is 1854. 1854, and that was the Prophet family. The Prophet family is listed as the owners here, and their children or grandchildren were found listed in the Shawnee Methodist Mission Manual Labor School list. William, Martha, and Rebecca. So 1854, and they are there. Now, their last name was Prophet, and this could be very significant because of the prophet Tenskwatawa. Now, if you've heard of Tippecanoe and Tyler 2, there was the Battle of Tippecanoe in Indiana, and at that battle, Tecumseh, the great general, had brought together many nations and fought and died. Now, Tenskwatawa was sent up to Canada, but then in an arrangement was granted access to come back to the United States, but he had to come to Kansas. Now, he actually ended up in Kansas City, Kansas, and you can find his resting place at the end of Ruby Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas, and it says, "Here lies a broken and forgotten man." So, Prophet. Now, was their last name Prophet? I don't know. So what they would do was pick names that were respected, right? So that's why you have a lot of Smiths and things like that. Charles Bluejacket. Now, Charles Bluejacket was very influential in this area, but not the same Chief Bluejacket. Okay, not the same one. So that's a different guy. Now, Prophet, if they named themselves after Prophet and associated themselves with Prophet, then you would have that provenance, right? You would have that respect. Maybe Washington would be a good name. But so are they necessarily descendants of the Prophet? No, we don't know. Could they be? Yeah. But it's really hard to tell because they didn't keep the records and they made up last names because they didn't have last names. Last names were a European thing, and so when the Europeans came, you had to have a last name, and they picked Prophet. So while the kids there at school, manual labor school, have the last name Prophet. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were related to Tenskwatawa, but he is in Kansas City, Kansas, and he was well known. He had visions that said to resist the white man and to stop drinking. He was a drunk. When he was a kid, he lost one eye because of a archery accident, and so he said resist the white man and to stop drinking and all that, and led that movement. He was very influential in Shawnee tribes, and Shawnee tribes go all the way up into Canada, or almost into Canada, Maine, I believe, and then all the way down to the south. So they were everywhere. All right. So back here. So we have Nancy Prophet listed in 1854. The 1874 is listed as A. Neff, N-E-F-F, and that was the family that Dr. Amy Van Der Riet suggested that would be the one who would have built these stones to enclose it, because needing the water for the orchard, and he had a quarry, so he had the means. In a 1902 atlas, it belongs to Benjamin Cross. In 1922 atlas, a J.A.S.W. Cross. Now, James or whatnot, but he actually died in 1922. But the Cross family is very significant in Mission. In Mission, there are only two graves. They are at the corner of Johnson Drive and Lamar, and it's Washington Cross and his wife. So Washington Cross they're celebrated as pioneers of Nancy, by the way. Washington Cross is celebrated as pioneers of founding Mission. So the rest of the Cross family is buried in Corinth Cemetery, 83rd and Mission. It's just east of Mission, and they are in the northeast corner. So you'll have to get out of your car, but the whole family is there. So here we are, Santa Fe Trail Spring House, and they brought the belt back. Perhaps it wasn't a stop on the Santa Fe Trail. Perhaps it was. But perhaps it was related to Tenskwatawa, the great Shawnee prophet. Perhaps it was related to the Cross family. I apologize. To the Cross family who established Mission. We know it was related to the establishment of Mission. It was a spring. Mission was founded on two springs. Here it is in Mission. They revamped it, redid it. Those stones from 1874, they still speak. That water still flows. It's still cold. History right there, and it's still going. Pretty exciting. This has been your history update with Andy Wright. I hope to see you next time and fill you in on some more.